Anyway, or you must have had a football team, but I never have. And despite the fact commentators do get accused because if you shout loudly for one team, and then you're accused of being biased for that team. But actually, a little story for you that in the Aguero game, there was a reunion a few years ago from Manchester City's point of view, and I went up to Manchester, and I was taken to task by a Manchester City fan who said I shouted too loud when Jamie Mackie put QPR 2-1 up in the game. I clearly wanted QPR to. I mean, this is like an Aguero tribute night.
The guy's been harbouring this for years.
Oh, it was finger wagging, and of course they were playing the game in the background, and it came up to that point. He goes, "There you go, listen." I said, "Well, they were avoiding relegation. It was a great goal against the odds," but he wouldn't have it.
No arguing with supporters, is there?
No, and that's why we're all addicted to it, aren't we? And I didn't fall out with him. I was just stunned.
So you've been a walking fan since you were
and I played against them actually. I did play one. I'm proud of this really, but it sounds a bit boastful. I finally got a game for the club. I had trials and went off and played for a rival club. And when I was 58, a friend of mine was the manager, Glenn Cockrell, and played hundreds of games in the Football League. And he was manager. He said, "Look, I'd like you to be sub for the first team." I said, "I'll be sub." The Doncaster Rovers chairman had just done it. And I said, "I'm a working fan. I want to see an old fella like me coming on as sub." Well, I was reasonably fair. Anyway, I said no. He said, "Well, I'll tell you what we do. We've got one more reserve game to play. Come and play in the reserves." I said, "I'll be sub in the reserves. Nobody's be watching or anything like that." So I turned up for the game, age 58, and he said, "You're starting." And I was never very quick, so to play up front when you know, I was well slower than Teddy Sheringham, should we put it like that. And anyway, I said, "Oh, I'll play." Actually, some of my family came to watch because I think they thought they were taking me home in a box afterwards. I played, and I had to sign. So I signed for Woking. So when people say, "What was your last club?" I say, "Well, you know." And there were some spectators there, and one of them I found out afterwards, and only took him to task about it for about 6 months later. It was Joe Cole, who had a mate playing for the opposition. So it was a memorable night, not for your listeners, not for you two.
I thought you were going to say there's a scout there watching you.
But after that, I'd been around. Anyway, a friend of mine, Alan Dowson, who was a young manager at a small club called Walton and Hersham, he was short of just somebody to put the cones out, I guess. And we'd met because my son was playing and he coached my son. So there's a bit of contact there. And he just said, "Do you want to come?" And they got a promotion at Walton under him. "Do you want to come and help out?" And I thought he meant write the programme notes. And truthfully, I thought that. And he said, "No." And I said, "It was the level that I played at." So I sort of hitched a ride with him, and we managed 6 clubs together. 1 or 2 high points where we got to the third round of the FA Cup, and we played Watford at home in the year that Watford got to the final, 2019. And they had to bring Troy Deeney on to clinch the win. That's the best description of it. We lost 2-0, but we did, we got through. We knocked Swindon out. And then we got promoted that year into the National League, where Woking still are. So that was a great time.
How does it, Martin, compare to the world of broadcasting and the years that you've spent as a commentator? Is there anything, I suppose, from your life being a commentator that you've taken into the coaching side of things, or are they just completely separate professions?
Playing's best. There's no question about that. And I had a go at it. There was no wasn't. But I had a go, and I'm proud of having a go. But John, you won't remember this, but a guy called John Lacey played for him in the cup final, and he played for Spurs in the old First Division. And I commentated on it. But I had 2 games against him. If I had done better, I would have been on the pitch. He might have been commentating. I saw him in May. I hadn't seen him for a while. I said, I have to thank you for my career in television, because you made it absolutely certain I wouldn't have a career as a player. Dominated me so much. So I think having been, I was coached by some good people. George Cohen, who won the World Cup with England, right back in the 60s. I'm sorry to mention that.
I was going to say it. What a landmark.
He coached me, and one or 2 others who went on to be assistant manager at Spurs. So I was always I was always trying to make myself better, unsuccessfully as a player. So going to watch the training of the guys at Craig's standard, and I have to say this, I made a note this morning to say it. When I came to Scotland to work for both ITV and for Sky in those early years, I could not have been looked after better. I was brought up on the Scotland-England rivalry, and it was always the game of the season for English people, more so than perhaps it's shown, because we know the Scots were very, very competent and competitive. I always thought, well, I'm going to be up there as a Sassenach, and I'm doing this sort of ITV English version of the Scottish game. But I was looked after magnificently by players, by managers. Ian Munro drove me to the airport once, I remember that. Gordon Strachan picked me up at a hotel and drove me somewhere. And I got one great piece of advice from Willie Miller, because I found commentating on Celtic versus Rangers quite difficult, because it wasn't quite within the remit of the football I watched. And I'd watched a lot of football before I did my first old book. And I said, these guys are beautifully dressed up, suits and ties and everything, at least verbally beating each other up, if not physically. And it was very hard to take, and sort of having to equate the balance of the commentary. And he said, very simple piece of advice, he said, enjoy it, but don't try to change us. So I forgot all editorial comments about, well, this shouldn't be this, and this, would this be happening elsewhere? And then I loved it after that. And so I'm very grateful that happened quite early on in the time. It was really straight. I loved doing games in Scotland. I did the Lee Griffiths 2 free kicks.
Oh yes, the wonder free kicks.
Yeah, and Scotland deserved to win, and Harry Kane came to England's rescue right at the end. But I found it very easy to give the worth that Scotland performed in that game.
Well, you've been glad you weren't commentating on the 0-0 Old Firm game yesterday, I imagine.
I need a commentator.
No, but as a commentator, they're the things that you do those games and you think, actually, I know what the vibe for the audience and listeners and in the stadium is, but actually, as a commentator, it's much more challenging, and you get perhaps much more satisfaction from doing a reasonable job on that as to shouting goal 10 times in a 6-4 or something, which takes it itself. It's a wonderful job. It's a reactive job, and playing is best. Commentating is definitely second best. Partly because I'm much better at it than I am at coaching, but coaching comes third, and it's great to be in the dressing room. We're in the under-19 National League. We play league clubs, and that's our blue ribbon team really at the academy. And I'm in the dressing room just passing on the odd piece of advice. You look and say, who is this great grandfather figure? I don't mean great grandpa, I mean a great grandfather figure. Yeah. and you feel that you can contribute, and it's great. It hopefully it keeps me young.
Oh, it certainly does. The fact that you're coaching and you were playing at the age of 58, Martin. So all these things and your love of the game.
Not very well. We did win the game. We did win the game, by the way. So.
Well, that's even better to hear. Just thinking of some of the managers, obviously, that you have worked with over the years, and some of the biggest characters, biggest names in football: Sir Alex Ferguson, Kenny Dalglish. Who would you say was the most intense manager that you've ever had to deal with, or the most intense? Usually stood out.
Well, Alec at time to time has challenged the line of commentary, I would say that, and I always respect the fact that a lot of people don't listen, and sometimes it gets reported back incorrectly, and there's maybe a challenging conversation. If I if I've got it wrong in the debate, I would hold up my hand and say, look, I'm sorry, human error, careless moment, whatever. And if they've got it wrong, I try not to prod too hard and tell them.
I mean, it's like Sir Alex Ferguson, you're wrong.
managers on the evening before the game when they don't really want to tell you. And now, of course, there are less British managers, sadly, I think from the British football point of view. So it's not so, but there are some wonderfully helpful people like Thomas Frank, for example. So it's not, I'm not stereotyping, but when it was more British, you had more phone numbers, to be honest, and you could make those calls. My first presenting job at Yorkshire Television, it was my job on a Friday to ring 16 different clubs to get the team news for our preview show, and often that team news would be the team, pretty much. And it was sometimes quite hard. Mick Buxton, who was manager of Huddersfield, said, well, I'll not be at the club after midday, you'll find me down the Working Man's Club. This is the number, ask for Jim the steward, and he'll get me. And I mean, that's what it was like then. It's not quite like that now. And
you mentioned Thomas Frank there, and did he give you access to Brentford's training before they made their debut in the Premier League, didn't they? How did you find that just experience? And I'm guessing that must help your commentary, being able to see the training and the players up close like that.
Well, that's where it helps that they know that I do a bit of coaching as well. So I come across, I mean, we played Crystal Palace under 16s the other week, so I was at a Palace training ground legitimately from a within football circumstance. So it's a lot of somebody who you've known down the years. Obviously, the longer you're lucky enough to be tolerated around the place, the more likely you are to know the people that matter. Yeah, but I've always wanted to go to training. My first ever game was Southampton against Sheffield Wednesday in December 1974. I saw it was the 28th, so it was a Saturday, and they played on the Boxing Day. So I saw Southampton play on the Boxing Day, and so that was fine. But Sheffield Wednesday, this was really quite a rushed job. I hadn't had a chance to go and see them play. And I went to the team hotel and asked the manager if I could watch the players having dinner so I could do some idea then. And of course, in those days, there were 12 or 13 players. Now there's double that. And he said, no, don't worry about that. He said, you can come down if you like, have a bite to eat with us. But we're training in the morning. Well, on the morning of the match? I said, yeah, we're just going to go get that hotel night out of our legs and bodies, just go and freshen up. I said, where are you going? I was just down, there's a park down the road, if you want to come down the road. And I did, and they won. But the goal was scored after 3 minutes, and any broadcast, it's a bit like playing, Craig, where you want to get a few touches of the ball before anything really significant happens. But a goal after 3 minutes, but it was scored by the only ginger-haired player on the pitch, called Eric Potts. And so what a
relief that must have been.
bonus it was. And that was the only goal of the game, as it turned out. So the rest of the game was hard work, but Eric made the first bit, the most important bit, easy. So.
I'm just thinking, because you've obviously done a bit of media work and you're often a co-commentator. Do you have an appreciation for somebody like Martin and the role and the preparation and everything that they do now that you are effectively sitting beside somebody like Martin as a co-commentator?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even things like pronouncing people's names, it's like, I'm terrible at that. And these guys, you'll know this better than me, but it's really difficult sometimes, isn't it, to get everything just absolutely spot on. That's one thing. I mean, other things that recognising players, I think sometimes if you go to commentate, I would imagine, on a match and you haven't seen the players before, that is slightly more difficult than, if you know the starting 11 from both teams and you actually recognise the movements of the players, so you don't get confused about who's doing what. So I think that the more often you see a player play, the more you recognise his mannerisms, and almost automatically that's so and so, and this is that guy, that's that guy. Other than trying to see the name on the back of the shirt,
from a distance.
Well, the name is one thing, and that you brought to mind the story of mine at Capello. First game of a season, late 1970s, Arthur Montford was doing golf, and therefore they needed a commentator. And actually the STV rules were I had to go and work for a week to satisfy the union requirements. I couldn't just turn up on the day.
Right.
But Celtic then had just numbers on the shorts. So it was.
Yeah, I remember that.
It was Morton v Celtic. Andy Ritchie was playing for Morton. You remember him, weren't you?
Wonderful player.
Yes. And I was terrified. It was a great honour to be asked to come and do the job. I was very new into the profession. But I was really terrified of having to call the Celtic players with numbers only on the shorts. And the late, great Jock Stein, I had met, I guess he might have been at Leeds. He might have been at Leeds by that time. I sort of knew him a bit, but everyone held him in such high regard and reverence. He said to me, look, he just finished, so you can work out, it was the first game under Billy McNeil, would it be, after Jock? It was the first game of the season. And Jock said to me, I'll be in the director's box, and we were in the back of the stand, the commentary team. He said, if you're in trouble, just have a look at me, I'll give it the thumbs up, or not the thumbs down. Ronnie Glavin scored with Celtic, with I guess a number 8 or on his shorts, I don't know, but and so the floor manager sort of looking after me was sitting next to me, and I said, just check with Jock. And he went, I can't do that. I can't go to Mr. Stiggs. I said, don't worry, he's told me it's all right. Anyway, it was about 6 or 7 yards away, I suppose. But one sort of thing, I caught him looking round, and I went mouth Glavin at him, and he gave me the thumbs up, and that was a very, very reassuring moment for me. A great man, and that's, I'm talking about having people trusting you, and that you're not there to steal a march on them or get a headline out of it. If you love the game, and that's why all three of us are talking today, because we all love the game with a real passion, and I think you can always recognise fellow people who are like that, and hopefully that has helped me down the years, that my very obvious obsession with football has got me through a few awkward moments, including Celtic not having them. I did them in the Champions League last season with big numbers of patches and everything. So it was great. They played well, actually.
Can I ask, the Aguero thing is so everybody knows.
I remember exactly where I was, in my living room with my dad, and we're not even Man City fans, but we were just jumping around, and your commentary, Martin.
So was it spontaneous? That was my problem. Real authentic,
If the things you script are the team news, because you have a limited amount of time, and sometimes they reveal the parts of the team, so you do a line on the back four, a line on the midfield, a line up front. So you have to script that, otherwise you'd be muddling your way through it and it'd be untidy. But the rest is, it's my daughter's an actor, and she does improv, and we've actually discovered we do the same thing. It's total improv what commentators do, but we have subject matter, but what we actually say is improvised, and it's nice afterwards if you come out with a line and you think, that's top of the head stuff. That's how that fitted the bill, as I suppose the one word. I'll be remembered for one word with a few O's, one line, and it's. But most of the time, to be brutally honest with you, come away saying, "Why on earth did I say that?" or "Why on earth didn't I say that?" And the best things always happen on the way home, and you think, "Well, you can't do anything about that." Why I have this catchphrase of saying, "And it's live."
That's a favourite of mine.
Yeah.
And it's
live. There you go.
Yes, I love hearing that.
The reason I do that is because I'm from the recorded football era. I started the highlights, ITV Sunday afternoon, Match of the Day still, and so the live games are few and far between. So we're going into the Premier League scenario. Even when I was more established at ITV, we probably only had 4 or 6 live games with 4 or 5 commentators striving to get these live games. For me to go into a channel where suddenly football accepted that live was good, instead of being, football was terrified of it. Nobody would go to the games if there were live matches on television. No one will go. It's just been the opposite. Everybody wants to go there and get their faces on television. So that, to me, it wouldn't be the same for younger commentators. Well, they're all younger than me, but it would certainly, it resonates from my past. So I did it because I felt it, and it just was convenient. And then I stopped doing it, and they said, "Why aren't you doing it?" And I went, "Well, I don't want to have a catchphrase, really." So you got one.
Yeah.
and when people stop me in the street, and it does happen a bit, much to my surprise, and they say, "Can you do Aguero?" I go, "No, I can't. I need that moment," and that's a level, it's a level of tall house that you can only get to on special occasions,
Yeah, you could hear it. You could hear it in your voice when I watched it back. Something that really stood out to me watching it again, Martin, was obviously the iconic Aguero moment, but I think as a commentator then allowing the moment to just happen, whereas sometimes I find that there will be some commentators who overspeak, whereas how do you find that balance? Do you know what I mean, Craig? It was just when you watch it back,
so you've got to let it lie there for a while, haven't you?
Yeah, you were just letting the whole occasion happen, and then you said this will never happen again, drink it and all, but you didn't rush it. It just felt timed so perfectly.
Well, I hope it was a bit of experience and instinct, but I think mostly Mark Hughes was the opposing manager. He was QPR's manager. By coincidence, the next night was the LMA dinner, the Managers Association dinner. And as I've walked in to the hotel, who should I see in the foyer but Mark? So, well, they stayed up, so it was a happy ending. Everyone was a winner. Yeah. And he said, that's the noisiest moment in a football ground I've ever heard. This is Mark Hughes, Man United, Bayern Munich, Barcelona, Wales, managing all over the place as well. The noisiest moment in a football ground he had ever heard. I think that had something to do with it, because if I had said anything, it would have been drowned out, and maybe I was aware of that. It is the City's moment. It's Aguero's moment. And the one thing about it, I've spoken to him, that I waited nearly 10 years before I had the chance to go and really sit down and talk to him about it. The Sky did an interview with us, the two of us, and I said to him, I knew you'd score before you knew you'd score, because his touch, he was Aguero, and he had a touch, and so that fraction of a second, maybe that led to the kind of response that I came up with, but it's totally instinctive, and yeah, it's nice to be associated with it. It would be very, very false modest for me to say that, this, even if that's the word on my tombstone, I'd be very happy with it.
Aguero.
Need some audio on your tombstone.
Whenever you walk up to it.
I've been doing it nearly 40 years, 38 years or something like that, and suddenly people were asking me questions about my work.
In terms of your preparation, is it right, Martin, that you've kept handwritten notes for decades?
I do a page on the players for each team, and a page on the team for each team. So where they are in the league, what their run is. An amazing stat it's not amazing, it's a commentator stat on Saturday. Chelsea, it was a 12:30 kickoff, Chelsea v Fulham, and after the final whistle, Chelsea have now won their last 6 games that they kicked off at 12:30. Fulham have lost their last 5 and not scored in any of those 5 games.
That's crazy.
It is, especially as Fulham had a perfectly good goal disallowed, which would have given, at least they might still have lost, but maybe they wouldn't have done, because it would have put them 1-0 up. So those are the things that